Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're reacting to New York City versus London, the city comparison. Now I don't know what it's like to live in New York, but I know that London is just extraordinary prices. It's absolutely stupid, and this video will be pretty interesting. Now before I start this video, I have to quickly state that I do now have a Discord, guys, and if you would love to check it out, it's in the description down below. It will take just a link, it's an instant invite, takes you straight there. So if you want to send me any recommendations of ideas or reactions, well, not reactions, but you know what I mean, videos to react to, there is a separate channel in that Discord server that you can send things to. And also I will be doing videos with you guys later on in the year, so if you join it, you know, just save yourself some time for later on. And also guys, there is a channel in there, as I will be doing, well, hopefully I'll be doing a 1,000 subscriber special video, which thank you guys, it means the absolute world. You know, all the support has been amazing, but I will be talking in that video about that. But there are some ideas in my Discord channel that if you guys just go check out, it will help a lot. Now without further ado, let's get it in with this video.
This episode is brought to you by Hero Wars. If you're anything like me, you definitely get nostalgic about old.
There we go.
Let's move on to the main part of our video. According to Travel and Leisure magazine, the best city in the world right now you could visit is San Miguel de Allende in Mexico, followed by Charleston in the USA, followed by Chiang Mai in Thailand. These three places, however, don't even get on the top 20 places to actually live in this year's Quality of Living Index, a yearly list compiled by HR firm Mercer.
Oh, I'm already yawning. It's like I start recording and then I yawn. Like I don't yawn throughout the day. I don't, not really. And as soon as I start recording a video, my brain's just like yawn, 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 yawn. I don't know, it's really weird.
Apparently, if you want to live the good life, you should move to Vienna, Austria, Zurich, Switzerland, or Auckland, New Zealand. The top 20 list doesn't include any cities from the UK or the USA, two countries that have arguably been the two heavyweights in the last century regarding power and wealth. These two countries, however, contain cities that attract millions of overseas visitors every year. Today, we are going to compare them in this episode of the infographic show, New York City versus London. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notifications.
Exactly, guys. Make sure you do that for my channel as well. It means a lot and it goes a long way.
The most visited places in the entire world. In 2016 though, the most visited city in the world by international travelers was Thailand's capital, Bangkok. 21.47 million people visited Bangkok that year. In second place was London with 19.88 million visitors, and in third place was Paris with 18.03 million visitors. The most visited US city was New York City, and that was in fifth place with 12.75 million visitors. Dubai was in fourth. In the last 5 years, Bangkok held the first position 3 times and London twice. In our comparison, we might thereby deduce that London is more visitable than New York City. Let's find out why. First, we will take a look at the two cities' abridged history. We'll start with London as it's the elder. The city of London is old, but nowhere near as old as some cities in the Middle East, China, or other parts of Europe.
London is extremely old.
You'll know from our show on the British and Roman empires that Britain was invaded by the Romans in 43 AD. They established the city of Londinium that at the time was about the size of a small village in England right now. When the Romans left Londinium, it was pretty much a ghost town, and for hundreds of years it remained so. Even the invading Vikings didn't do much with it, and it wasn't until the Normans invaded from France and subjugated the country that London became a powerful city. William the Conqueror made London the Norman stronghold, building the famous Tower of London. The Normans would be the last people to this day to successfully invade England. In medieval times, London grew in power and wealth, but that also included the spread of poverty, corruption, and greed among the upper echelons of society, and bouts of population-denuding plagues. It wasn't until 1850 that London became the largest city in the world in terms of population. Some sources say it was as early as 1825, though most scholars agree that London was the most populated city until the 1920s. Another city then took over right up until the 60s, and that was the city of New York. Long before New York City had high-rise buildings, it was the stomping ground of Algonquin natives who hunted and fished, where people now trade stocks and eat pastrami sandwiches. It wasn't until 1624 that European settlers would start a community in the city, when families of the Dutch West India Company made a home of Nutten Island. That's now known as Governor's Island and is between Manhattan and Brooklyn. Being Dutch, they called this place New Amsterdam. Some historians say that the Dutch bought the area from the natives for a few trinkets. The peace between the natives and the Euro expansionists Communists didn't last, and the trouble ended with a lot more native casualties than Dutch casualties. New Amsterdam soon covered much of what we regard as New York City today, but the imperialistic Brits, guided by London prospectors, would soon burst the Dutch bubble. On August 26, 1664, 4 British frigates sailed to New Amsterdam and in a bloodless coup took control and renamed it New York after the Duke of York, not the city of York, in the north of England. At that time, the city had about 1,500 Europeans.
That's quite interesting, actually. Duke of York and not named after the actual city, York.
And 375 Africans, most of whom were slaves. It remained that way for over 100 years, and even when American independence was on the cards, New York City was a stronghold for British loyalists. In 1783, the British were forced out, and in 1789, it became the...
Yeah, we know what happens there because of the video I watched about the American Revolution. So if you'd like to check that out, that is on my channel down below. I will be reacting to the Civil War at some point. I think it's later on this week. Not quite sure.
First national capital of the US. Only in 1790 did the capital become Washington, D.C. Like London, the growing city had its fair share of growing pains, including great fires and huge loss of life due to yellow fever and cholera. Nonetheless, by 1850, the population was more than 550,000, and New York City had become a center of the world. So now we come to the present day. The population of London right now is thought to be about 8.7 million. This has spiked lately due to the arrival of ethnic minorities that make up about 44% of the city's population. London covers an area of 607 square miles, making it the biggest city in Europe. New York City has a population of 8.538 million, and it is mixed in terms of ethnicity. About 44% of residents are white Caucasian, 27% Hispanic, 25% Black or African American, with a much smaller mix of other ethnicities. The city covers 304 square miles and is the biggest city in the USA, though considerably smaller than London. But with almost equal populations, this means New Yorkers have far less space. So what about the standard of living in these cities? They are both pivotal cities regarding the financial sector, though one website claims that London's financial sector is slightly bigger with 340,000 employees to New York's 322,000. As of March 2017, the Global Financial Centers Index puts London at the center of the world, with New York hot on its heels in the number 2 spot. New York has more billionaires, with 103 in 2017 according to Forbes, while London only has 72. London is said to have better job growth.
72, that's still a lot of billionaires.
Though over the last decade. For the average Joe among us, how is life in these cities? Again, it depends on which source you read. The latest cost of living index by Expatizen puts New York as the 5th most expensive city to live in the world, and London in 12th, with food and housing in New York being more expensive, but clothes and transportation being cheaper. The Guardian reports that after Brexit, London got a lot cheaper, stating that the city has recently arrived at a newfound bargain basement status. In fact, according to the website Numbeo, that compares cost of prices around the world, the cities are fairly equal in terms of eating, going out, shopping, but just a bit more in New York. Renting in London is cheaper than New York if you're not renting high-end apartments, but actually buying a place is much more expensive in London on average. Travel is more expensive in London.
It's impossible to buy a house in London or even an apartment unless you've got money and you're settled.
Whether you buy your own gas or use public transportation. Gas and electric is also more expensive in London, but internet is almost half the price of New York on average. Education is more expensive in New York, and it's thought that inner city London schools are a bit better than inner city New York schools. The average wage in New York is $4,542 a month, while in London it is only $2,952.
See, that the average wage in London that's not even that good compared to because they add on, because you live in London, you earn slightly more because it's more expensive to live there. So, realistically, you're not earning much. Realistically, it's not a lot.
A month. That might sound bad for Londoners, but they do get free healthcare, lots of paid vacation, and in general, better workers' rights.
We do, but it does come out our taxes. You know, it all adds up, doesn't it? But, yeah, for the most part it is.
Money aside, what about the general day-to-day creature comforts? Well, as London is much bigger, it also has more space. With that, you get more parks and more green spaces. At the same time, New York is easier to get around, and some people speaking on forums say, a bit more fun, as it's compact, and unlike London, is more of a 24-hour city. If you are out at night, London may have more crimes in terms of robberies and
100%. Have you not heard of the knife crimes that happens at London at night time? And also the people on mopeds that drive around at night time and steal people's phones when they're on a phone call or just looking at the phone. It happens every day. Every day.
Assaults, but New York has more murders. According to Numbeo,
Well, yeah, you have guns in New York. You don't have guns in England. Well, no, there is guns, but they're not used as often.
Respondents to a survey said they felt similar about safety in London and New York. It seems the difference is bigger crimes are more common in New York, but your chances of finding trouble on the street is more likely in London. We should, however, take this to those that have lived in both cities. According to one American man who did both for many years, he said on a forum thread that both cities were too expensive even when single. He loved the open, sprawling green spaces in London and at times didn't like the noisy, claustrophobic streets of New York. He did, however, like the fact that in New York, you could sit down anywhere and find enjoyment, while London was too spread out for him at times. The writer agreed with the sites we cited already on costs of things, also the heavy workload in the US for most people, but did say in terms of meeting new people, socializing, or partying, New York is easier. One more thing he pointed out that we didn't mention yet was the weather, which is a deal breaker for some people. New York has colder winters and can have steaming hot summers, whereas London is cool, damp, and gray for much of the year, with some warm weeks in summer and only a moderately cold winter compared to New York. We'll end it there.
That's not that bad. That's a lot of differences, but it depends where you go in London for meeting people, I guess. Bit of dust on my camera, but yeah, it depends where you go, I guess. I don't go there often, but I have been there quite a lot, especially like you have family to visit there and Camden Market, and you got loads of the sights to see, so that's important. But it is just so expensive. Travelling's not too bad around London. I don't know about New York, about taking the underground or the tube. I don't know what you call that in New York. Is it metro? No, that's in Moscow. I don't know. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below, as a little goes a very long way for me. And honestly, if we can just get my viewer engagement up, that would be great, guys. Get him out there a bit more. Thank you guys for all the support you have been giving recently. Again, I will be doing a 1,000 subscriber special video at some point. It's probably going to be a while, so don't expect it anytime soon. But yeah, if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know exactly when I upload next, that would be amazing, as I do upload every single day, so you'll know exactly when. It should be 6 PM every single day. Some days it's slightly later because I forget to edit, but it always gets released at least on that day. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, do all that shenanigans, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.